website is pretty vast. It has a lot of information on it, and a lot of people use our website from all over. We have maps of compost facilities. Now, these are now Google Maps. They're GIS maps, and they have all the different facilities that want to be on our maps, are on the maps. And they tell you what they compost, where they compost, whether they may take material in, and all that kind of stuff, all those types of things. So these are interactive maps. People can be added to them. We've actually we're not adding it to our maps, but we have some maps of New York City that you're working on, right? With drop-off things. So people will know where to drop off some of their organics. So these are interactive, growing, changing all the time, and hopefully giving people the information that they can use. So I think this one's probably hard for you to see, but it's just a really quick version of composting and what composting is. We have all these organics. We need to add things to those organics, and this is the quick science physics lesson. We need to add microbes to those organics. Oxygen. Why do we need oxygen? Because the microbes live on oxygen. They have to have oxygen or they can't function. And moisture. They've got to have moisture. So we need to balance these things out. And it seems like we should be done with all this education. But we're really balancing browns and greens, wet and dry material, or carbon and nitrogen. And that's what we're trying to do. And then we get products out of it. We get compost. We get heat. We get carbon dioxide. And what else do we get out of there? Moisture. And we get moisture. Those two that are in the middle there, we're working even more on. There are some ways that we can mine the heat from the compost piles. And we could even do that here in New York City, I believe, if we have the right stuff. I will show you some slides of how that works. And you'll keep me on time, Bonhotal. Yeah. And CO2. We have a facility that I'll show you a slide of, facility over in New Winter that's taking the CO2 from their compost and their fish houses. It's an aquaponics operation. And they're putting it into the greenhouses because the plants need CO2. The atmosphere really doesn't need the CO2, the plants do. So there are really exciting things happening, different ways that we're making things happen, and ideas that we can follow up with. Food scrap diversion, it's not an easy thing. We would have done it a long time ago if it was really easy, but it's not particularly. So we just need to have plans. And that's what everybody's developing here. I know Grow New York City is working really hard on that and has a lot of infrastructure built in here, and I'm so pleased with, whenever I talk to David, it brightens my life up because there's a lot that is happening and going on, and there are plans. I think there can be more. Think decentralized. New York City is not going to have a centralized compost facility. You shouldn't have a centralized compost facility. We just don't want it all in one place. We want it to be convenient. We want it to be around the communities. We really shouldn't have one Fresh Hills that we compost everything at or something like that, because when we do that, we're concentrating too much waste in one place. And we do that with landfills, yes, but we don't have to do that with valuable nutrients. So we really do want that stuff to happen. We have facilities outside of New York City also that maybe we're shipping some material to. Right now, we're shipping material to pretty far away. And that's a little bit troublesome. I hope that we can maybe send less farther away to Delaware and be able to build our infrastructure right here in New York City. Generators, we all know those. I won't read those off for you, but we have a lot of it. And we can hit some of those large generators and get some of that stuff out of the waste stream so it's not going to the landfills. And it is a resource. Next one. Oh. Collection. It's a big deal. Collection is one of our hard stumbling blocks in here. But I've been in cities that are much more congested than New York City, and they're doing it there. So I think we can do it here as well. I think sometimes the haulers and the contractors and all that stuff, people have a lot of turf. And we've got to figure things out. As I always say, Anybody here can correct me if I'm wrong. We have haulers. The haulers have been around forever, for a long time, as long as we've been moving waste. And they don't lose out on these things. They change, they meet the needs, and they separate one more item out of the waste stream. So I really think that that's a doable thing, and we just have to forget about some of this turf crap and really be able to work through some of that. In San Francisco, it was pretty amazing. They really did put a plan together for collection, as far as I could see. They just said, you know, there's jobs out there to be had, you can get paid to take these wastes away, and then you bring them to a composting facility, and there are a bunch of composting facilities in all these places. And people brought it out in carts and little Pullmans and things like that where they couldn't reach it otherwise with a vehicle, and moved and conveyed it to the compost piles, to the compost windrows. Grinding is an option. It is something that we're going to do, but I'm afraid that we don't want to grind it all and flush it all, because those are really resources that we want to capture. And when we put it in the sewage treatment plant, mix it with sewage treatment, then we do downgrade the value of that material. It goes to the landfill. And we do produce a lot. We produce a lot of biosolids already. We can produce a lot of clean compost also, and that really can be redistributed throughout the world. Not the world, throughout our local areas, the United States. I'd rather not move it all over the world. It's not worth it. I'm sorry for that. The transportation, there are vehicles, there are all kinds of stuff that we can use to move this stuff. We just have to figure that out and invest in some of those vehicles. And we have done that. Next one. Just different types of collection. We've retrofitted a lot of vehicles to, or people that are technically good at this stuff have retrofitted a lot of vehicles so that they can pick up food waste. We're working on picking up food waste with bikes. We're working on wheelbarrows. We're working on all kinds of stuff. And we just have to have some rules for that so it's done neatly and we don't drip it all over the sidewalks and all over the streets. I mean, that's really what we're trying to do. And we don't have a lot of odor when it's being conveyed from point A to point B. I think that's an important thing. Next one. We'll skip that. We have a lot of leaf and yard waste in New York City. We saw that with the last 2 hurricanes. We saw it with all that, and we get the calls upstate. We've gotten a lot of wood chips. We don't know what to do with them. Everybody bring your grinders in New York City. I think we could have a lot better plan for our wood waste. We need it in a lot of places, and we need it to compost. So the leaves and the wood and our park system in New York City has been composting for a long time. We know how to do some of this stuff, and we can do it. So banking on some of those bulky materials and distributing those throughout the state when we need to is really important. But they are a key ground in the whole brown and green scenario. We have to have those bulky materials. Next one. Leaf and yard waste, as I said, lots of it out there. Next. One of the things, and I'm going to start small and then go to the larger systems. One of the things that we want to do is to keep as much organic material, not compost, or organic material at home. We have different types of bins and technologies where we can actually compost in our kitchens. Vondra's got the bokashi where she picks up buckets of food, and that goes to composting. It's in the bokashi systems, and it goes to composting. We have vermicomposting. Worms live very well in apartments. I've had them in apartments for years, in houses for years. They don't try to escape. They just do their job. They're pretty good. There are all different things we can do indoors, and I'll show you a couple of slides of other things. This happens to be in New Orleans. It is a small worm bin. It's right where 2 buildings meet, and it works really well. It composts. That's a restaurant that it's in that corner of. And it composts all the restaurant's waste. The worms do all the processing in that. And it's really just, it doesn't stick out, it's covered, it's pretty easy. It can be done. So we can tuck these away in little places and have some valuable material in the end. Next one. This is a stealth composter or a toucan composter. And these tend to work pretty well because we're composting inside a can. So we have 2 cans, and we can actually